بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأراضين أجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Alhamdulillah, we finished the discussion about Qat'ul Qatta. The next discussion is about Ilm Ijmali. Al-Ilmul Ijmali. This discussion is very useful and helps you in understanding some of the rulings in fiqh. And there are some detailed discussions that are, of course, very difficult, but what we discuss here, inshallah, would be not difficult to understand. Ilm is divided into two parts. Al-ilmu tafsili, al-ilmu ijmali. Al-ilmu tafsili means detailed knowledge, or decisive knowledge, or definitive knowledge. All these are okay. You can say detailed, decisive, definitive, maybe definitive, or a specific. You know the details. For example, there are few cups of water here, but one is najas. You know which one is najas. This is called ilm tafsili. Means your knowledge is not vague, is not too general, is not ambiguous. It's very specific. It comes with detailed understanding. But sometimes I know one of these are najas, but I don't know which one. It can be 2 cups, one of them is najas. It can be 10 cups, one of them. It can be 1,000, but I know 1 or 2. So this is called al-ilmul ijmali, means you know but not specifically. You know, it's a kind of unspecific knowledge. Okay? You have a general knowledge, but not detailed. For example, I know some of you have done mubahisa, but I don't know who. Yeah? But I know some of you have done mubahisa. Don't tell me none of us has done mubahisa. Then it will break my heart. Okay. So, inshallah, some of you has done, but I don't know which one. This is ilm al-ijmali. Okay? So the concept is clear. Al-ilm al-ijmali, opposite to al-ilm al-tafsili. After careful examination, indeed, we realize that ilm al-tafsili is 2 knowledge. Ilm ijmali, only 1 knowledge. You know that there is a najas cup here, and you know which one. So there are 2 information. In ilm ijmali, you have only one of them. You don't know the other one. It's like knowledge and ignorance. So, please look at the book, page 159. الفصل الخامس هل المعلوم إجمالا كالمعلوم تفصيلا. Is what is known إجمالا in a non-detailed way, in non-specific way, is it the same as what is known specifically? العلم ينقسم إلى تفصيلي وإجمالي. Ijmaliyan comes after the example. Al-ilmu ينقسم إلى تفصيلي وإجمالي. تفصيلي كالعلم بوجود النجاسة في الإناء المعين. Knowing najasa is in a specific container. إناء means container. ظرف. إجمالي كالعلم بوجود النجاسة في أحد الإناءين لا بعينه. We know one of the two is najas, we don't know which one. Okay. Ulama al-Usul have discussed whether ilm ijmali is like ilm tafsili or not. In what aspect? In this sense that if you know something tafsilan, it makes you responsible. Al-ilm al-tafsili yunajjizu al-taklif, makes taklif effective. If you know something, you have to do it. If I know this cup is not just, it brings a taklif for me. For example, I should not drink it. Taklif can be wujub, can be hurma. Anyway, it is a taklif. Either I have to do it or I have to not to do it. Anyway, that taklif, whatever it is, whether it is wujub or hurma, becomes munajjaz, means it's now actualized, it's effective now. Is ilm ijmali also like this? If I know this cup is najas, I cannot drink, I cannot make wuzu with this. If I know one of the two cups is najas, should they still be avoided or not? So one question is it like ilm tafsili in munajjaziyat for taklif, in making taklif effective, applicable? The second question is it like ilm tafsili in hurmat mukhalafat, in being prohibited to ignore it, to disobey it, to act against it? Okay, you should always do muwafaqat and avoid mukhalafat, means you obey and avoid disobedience. Is it the same? You have to obey if it is wajib, and you have to make sure that you don't disobey it. For example, it's haram. فَاعْلَمْ أَنَّهُ مُخْتَلَفُ في أن العلم الإجمالي هل هو كالعلم التفصيلي بالتكليف أو لا. They have disagreed. Who? اختلفوا means علماء الأصول. Yes. It's obvious from the context, you realize اختلفوا means علماء الأصول. Is علم إجمالي like علم تفصيلي بالتكليف? When you know exactly in a detailed way the taklif, it has some consequences, some implications. Is it like that? To explain it more, this discussion has two sides. البحث يقع تارة في منجزية العلم الإجمالي وأخرى في كفاية الامتثال الإجمالي. Sometimes the discussion is ilm ijmali munajjaz for taklif, makes taklif effective, actual, applicable or not? The second is imtithal ijmali enough or not? What is imtithal ijmali? So the first one you understood. The second one, imtithal ijmali. What is imtithal ijmali? For example, there are two or more directions of prayer. I say either Qibla is this or Qibla is this. Or maybe You don't know anything, so it can be 4 direction. And you can find out which is Qibla. But you say, it takes time, or I am not, for example, feeling comfortable to ask people. Let me say 4 prayer, or if it is between 2, let me do 2 prayers. So, is this enough? Because you don't know which one is actually the one that you have to do. Can you make qasd qurba? Can you have imtithalul amr in your mind? Because you didn't bother to find out what is amr. This is when imtithal tafsili is possible, okay? You didn't inquire. Is this also enough? Or we have to make sure that we find out wajib or haram and consider it, implement it in a detailed way. So one question is about munajjaziyat of taklif. The other question is whether imtisal ijmali, when imtisal tafsili is possible. Is imtisal ijmali sufficient or is not sufficient? So discussion is taratan, means once, sometime, is في منجزية العلم الإجمالي وأخرى تارة أخرى another time في كفاية الامتثال الإجمالي. Did you get امتثال إجمالي? What is امتثال إجمالي? Is that you don't know which one is the one that is obedience to Mawla. You do something more, something extra. Okay, let's first discuss the first question. أما منجزية العلم الإجمالي. The first question, that علم إجمالي is منجز, makes taklif effective in effect. Okay? This seems to be not controversial, seems to be clear. فالحق أن العلم الإجمالي بوجود التكليف الذي لا يرضى المولى بتركه منجز للواقع. If you have ilm ijmali about an obligation that you know it's important for Mawla, Mawla is not going to drop this obligation because there is no ilm tafsili. So you have to then act according to that taklif. That taklif becomes effective, that taklif becomes applicable. وَمَعْنَى التَّنْجِيز, he explains himself the meaning of tanjiz. هو وجوب الخروج عن عهدة التكليف عقلا. Aql, intellect, says that you must make sure that you are no longer under this taklif. Taklif was there. You knew it in general, not in detailed way, but in general you knew that there's taklif. Aql says still this taklif is bringing mas'uliyah, responsibility. فَلَوْ عَلِمَ وَجْدَانًا يَا لَوْ عُلِمَ وَجْدَانًا. لَوْ عَلِمَ الْمُكَلَّف or لَوْ عُلِمَ بِوُجُوبِ أَحَدِ الْفِعْلَيْنِ. We know one of the 2 actions is wajib. For example, there are 2 cups of water, one of them is medicine for you. And if you don't take that medicine, you die. So it becomes wajib. Yeah? Taking medicine, if it is the only way to save you, becomes wajib. You don't know which one is that medicine. So you have to take both. Yeah? Of course, if you know one is medicine, one is poison, that's another discussion. That is dawaran bain al-mahzurain. That's another discussion. But imagine one of them is wajib, one of them is not wajib. It's mubah. So, ulama wujdanan بوجوب أحد الفعلين أو علم وجدانا بحرمة أحدهما. حرمة أحدهما means علم وجدانا بحرمة أحدهما. There are two things, one of them is haram. For example, one of these two cups is najas or is poisoned. You have this information that one of them is haram. Okay. In the case of knowing one of the two is wajib, يجب عليه الاتيان بهما في الأول. Okay? You have to bring both of them. Let me give you another example. Two ladies are coming. One of them is your mother, but you don't know which one. What should you do? Still, you have to respect. So you have to respect both. So you have to stand up for both of them. Okay? You cannot say, because I didn't know which one is my mother, I had no mas'uliyah. Is it clear? Yes. يجب عليه الاتيان بهما في الأول. في الأول means في الشق الأول, when you know one of the two is wajib, you have to do both. وتركهما يجب تركهما في الثاني. Okay? تركهما في الثاني. When you know that one of the two is haram, you have to avoid both of them. Okay? For example, you go to a restaurant, or for example, there is a meeting. They say we have halal food and there is also haram food. You don't know which one is haram. Someone has mixed the signs. You cannot say because there is halal food, I can eat this one. If you know that there is haram inside one of these foods, you have to avoid all of them. Okay? ولا تكفي الموافقة الاحتمالية. موافقة احتمالي, probable implementation or obedience is not enough. Two ladies are coming, one of them is your mother. So you say, I respected one of them. This is called موافقة احتمالي. Means you are not sure that you obeyed the command for respect. You say, I had to respect my mother and I had respected one lady. Can you tell me that I disobeyed? No, I cannot tell you you disobeyed, but you also cannot tell me that you obeyed. Okay? And because there was taklif, you had the responsibility to making sure that you have performed, you carried out your responsibility. Or when, imagine there are 10 different types of food here. You know one of them is haram. You cannot say, okay, I leave one of them by randomly aside and eat from the other 9. Can you tell me I've eaten haram? No, I cannot tell 100%, but this is not enough. You have to have موافقة قطعي, not موافقة احتمالي. Yeah? Certain and decisive obedience. وبهذا ظهر أن العلم الإجمالي كالعلم التفصيلي. In what? في لزوم الموافقة القطعية. You must definitely obey it. You must do your best to make sure that what was taklif has been implemented. وعدم كفاية الموافقة الاحتمالية. It's not enough to do something that you can say, perhaps I did my wajib. It's not enough. وحرمة المخالفة القطعية. You cannot do decisive disobedience. That is no doubt about it. So, please remember these 3 stages. مخالفة قطعي. is by not doing anything. For example, your mother is coming, is one of the two ladies. If you don't respect anyone, so this is mukhalafat qat'i. This is a problem. If you respect one of them and say, you cannot tell me I did mukhalafat qat'i because maybe I have obeyed. This is called muwafaqat ihtimali or mukhalafat ihtimali. We say this is not enough. You have to have muwafaqat qat'iyya. You have to be sure that you have obeyed. Neither ignoring both, which is mukhalafat qat'iyya, nor ignoring one, which is mukhalafat ihtimaliyya, probable disobedience. You have to have definitely obedience. Question? Yes.
Second one, ihtimali.
Yes. Is it clear?
Yes.
Is it clear ijmalan or tafsilan? Tafsilan. Okay. وبهذا, so I repeat again, بهذا ظهر أن العلم الإجمالي كالعلم التفصيلي. علم إجمالي is like علم تفصيلي. In what aspect? What is وجه الشبه? في لزوم الموافقة القطعية. You must make sure that you have definitely obeyed. وعدم كفاية الموافقة الاحتمالية. It's not sufficient to have probable obedience. وحرمة المخالفة القطعية. And definitely it is haram to do something which is disregarding taklif altogether. So definitely you have disobeyed. So as I said, there are three levels. مخالفة قطعية, مخالفة احتمالية, which comes with موافقة احتمالي. When you do one of them, maybe you have obeyed, but maybe also you have disobeyed. So you have not protected yourself from haram. Maybe you have done haram. Maybe you have not done your wajib. Okay. The next issue, so the issue of munajjaziyat finished. The next issue is al-imtithal al-ijmali sufficient? As I said, you can find out qibla, but you say, instead of finding out qibla, I say prayer to all the possible, probable directions. And one of them is towards qibla. Is this enough? Or you have to find out? Okay? أما كفاية الامتثال الإجمالي مع التمكن من الامتثال التفصيلي. You can find out qibla. But you say, I have to say prayer to qibla. I repeat it as many times as I become certain. Okay? فَلَهُ صُوَرٌ. This has different options. There are different possibilities. One is that the wajib that you are in doubt about it is tawassuli. You remember tawassuli is opposite to ta'abbudi. Tawassuli has no need for qasd qurbat, for intention. Okay? For example, you know that you have to wash one of your dresses for salat. Your dress is najas, you have to wash it. You don't know which one of these trousers is to be washed. And you can find out, but you wash all of them. Is there any problem? There's no problem. You can wash. Of course, if it is issue of israf, that's another issue. But just washing is not a problem. You can wash anything to make sure that the real dress which was najas is cleaned. Is there any problem? No. As-suratul ula كفاية الامتثال الإجمالي في التوسليات. In واجبات التوسلي, it's enough. The example which I gave you is very much possible to happen. There is another example which may not be very applicable to some of you. كما إذا, or most of you, or all of you, كما إذا علم or علم بوجوب مضاراة أحد الميتين. For example, there are two dead bodies and one of them must be buried. Maybe the other one, for example, has people to look after it, or for any reason. This one is your mas'uliyah, you're responsible to bury this one. But you don't know which one.
Muslim, for example, one of them.
I don't want to go to details. So there are two, but one of them is necessary for you. You have a responsibility. So what do? You can bury both of them. That's not a problem. Burying is different from praying. Praying needs qasd qurbat, but just putting in the grave doesn't need qasd qurbat. Okay? So you do ihtiyat. Although you could inquire, you could go and ask and read the file, for example, find out which one. بموجوب مضاراة أحد. Yes.
What would be one reason for not burying the second body?
We can think about it.
Maybe his family.
Another person is coming and he wants to bury. You are not responsible for except one. Okay? Maybe they want to, for example, do it themselves, whatever. ومثله التردد في وقوع الإنشاء. The second example, which is our third example, because I gave something from outside. Yes.
But Shaykhna, if you're not responsible for the second one, wouldn't it be worse to
Then you have to please them. That's another question, like Israf. Our question is this one which was wajib to bury is now acceptable that we bury it? Yes. Because we didn't know which one is. Now, whether you have problem with the other one, that's another issue. Okay? Because haysiyat is very important, as we discussed in philosophy. From this perspective, we are talking.
So, Shaykhna, let's assume, I'm not trying to complicate things, but I'm
No.
trying to understand. If we have wujub for one and hurma for the other one, right? For example,
No.
we have permission.
No, that's another issue.
So how do
That's
we-
davarane baby. No, suppose the other one is not wajib. If it is wajib and haram, that's another issue. But it's not haram, or even if it is haram, this is wajib tabassuli, doesn't need any intention. So you don't need for wujub tabassuli to have muwafiqat tafsili. It's just enough to know that among different things that you have done, wajib is taken care of. Yes. It was very exciting, huh? Example, yes.
One body is not Muslim and they want to bury it on their own wishes or their own according to their religion. How can you bury both of them at the same time?
No, our question is not that one. There can be many different reasons. Our question is, if you bury the one that you were responsible, and for making sure that you also took the pain of burying others, is this a problem with respect to the one that was wajib? No, that's not a problem. But then there can be other problems. Now you have back pain, you have lots of problems maybe. Our concern is, have you done your wajib, although you didn't inquire to find out which one was wajib? We say yes, it's tabassuli. Wujub tabassuli doesn't need detailed intention. Indeed, it doesn't need intention. Yes.
Shaykhna, what if there's 10 bodies or 20 bodies. Does the number change anything? The probabilities, do they change anything? You have to definitely do the one,
All of them.
even though there's 100 bodies.
Yes.
One of them is your
Unless the number goes so high that then Uqala would not consider that one which was, among them as effective. For example, I have two neighbors, one on my left, one on the right. I know one of them is hungry, doesn't have anything to eat tonight. I have to feed both of them, or at least knock both of them, the door of them, and offer food. Because I know one of them is poor and hungry. Of course, some ulama say, even if you don't know, you have to ask. Even if you don't know. But suppose, at least for those who say, if you know, you have responsibility. So one of the two on the east or left, right or left, needs food, I have to ask both of them. I say one of the two neighbors on the right or one of the two neighbors on the left. So it's 1 in 4. Again, I have to knock the door. 1 in 3 on the right, 1 3 on the left. Again, I have to knock the door. But then a time comes that Uqala say, you don't need to knock all the doors. For example, from here, if I go 1 mile, or from this side I go mile, one person is hungry. Uqala say here, we call it atraf or ilm al-ijmali. Different parties are so much that they ignore it. Okay? For example, I know this butcher has 2 corpses, they call? Carcasses?
Yes.
2 carcasses. One of them is not slaughtered properly. I cannot eat from any of them. If it has 4, I cannot eat. But if I know in London there is one butcher who says my carcasses are halal, but one of them is not halal, this doesn't bring mas'uliyah, because the sides of this ilm is so many that probability is ignored. We call it shubhiyya غير محصورة. Sometimes mahsura means the sides can be counted. Sometimes it becomes too many. Okay?
So when you ignore it, means you can have the meat?
Pardon?
You can't have the meat. Suppose the carcass is...
If it is one of them in the whole London, this is ignored. Uqala don't pay attention to such probability. But then what is the exact number? If you ask me what is the number, I cannot fix the number. Because there is black and white and gray. The gray area is not very decisive. You cannot say 50 plus or 100 plus. So you have to do ihtiyat in between. But for sure, after a number, no one, considers that al-Mujaz, yes.
So is this related or the same as al-ihtimal al-mu'tad bih, or is that a different one?
Ihtimal al-mu'tad bih, but the ilm al-ijmali, not, because if you didn't know that one of them is this, even if you have 50% ihtimal, you don't bother. Imagine I go to a butchery and 50% I think that maybe this is not halal. But a Muslim butchery, this 50% is not important. But if I know one is haram and there are 2, this 50% is different from that 50% because this 50% is within ilm ijmali. So you know one of them is this, you know. Sometimes this one and I say 50% najas or haram. This is not bringing mas'uliyah. But if it is one of the two, and definitely one of them is this. You understand the difference between 50%? Yes.
Yesterday, I hear one chair
Yes.
said about this al-Mujaz. If you have two containers,
Yes.
one of them najis.
I don't know all ulama whatever they say, but this is the scholarly discourse. You know, because sometimes we have bahsa ilmi, sometimes fatwa. Fatwa is. Yeah. But now you understand, you know, some of the rulings in fiqh. For example, maybe in Risala you saw this, that if there are 2 or 3 cups of water, you cannot use them for wuzu, even if you use one of them. But if it is touching you, one of them touches you, you are not najis. Of course, you check your marja. Another example. Someone is going to conduct marriage, doesn't know whether it has to be ankahtu muwakkalati, for example, muwakkali, or zawajtu. Okay? So he says, I say once ankahtu, another time I say zawajtu. Is there a problem? There's no problem. There's no problem. What is important is that the one which was necessary, he said it. You don't need to know exactly that this was. Okay? ومثله التردد في وقوع الإنشاء بلفظ النكاح أو بلفظ الزواج فينشأ بكلا اللفظين. Taraddud means he's undecided, he's not sure. Taraddud, yeah? Means in Farsi now we use taraddud for traffic. Taraddud, you know, say traffic. But in Arabic, in Farsi we say tardid. But in Arabic, taraddud means like tardid in Farsi, means you are not sure. Your mind goes between different possibilities. So you don't know insha or zawaj, to initiate. Yeah? Insha and initiate are very close. To initiate zawaj is to be from the root nikah, like ankahtu, or zawaj is zawajtu. فَيُنْشِئُ بِكِلَا اللَّفْظَيْنِ. So he initiates with both of them. This is the first. Al-Muwafaqa or Al-Imtithal Al-Ijmali في الواجبات التوسلية. Second, كفاية الامتثال الإجمالي في التعبديات. But this by itself has different types. For example, first, when there is no need to repeat. If there is need to repeat, it's another case. We discuss it inshallah later. For example, someone doesn't know that he should do ghusl al-janaba or ghusl mas al-mayyit and يغتسل امتثالا للأمر الواقعي. So he says, inshallah, the one that is really applicable to me, that one I want to do it. يغتسل, because there is one amr, he doesn't know which one. يغتسل امتثالا للأمر الواقعي احتياطا مع التمكن من تحصيل العلم التفصيلي. It was possible for him. بأن الواجب هو الاغتسال للجنابة أو مس الماء. This example maybe is not very good example. How you can be unsure about one of these two? Yeah, unless someone maybe.
Would one question work for both?
Pardon?
Would one question work for both? Or every question just-
So there is one ghusl applicable, doesn't know which one.
There's one question with the aim.
So
of-
does the ghusl, but doesn't think to remember. You know, he knows that I had to do one ghusl, but doesn't remember which one or doesn't inquire. You know. أو الظن التفصيلي الذي دل الدليل على كونه حجة. Either he could achieve ilm or at least a valid dhan, valid suspicion. Of course, suspicion in the usuli sense. Sometimes you cannot, but for example, there is two shahid who say that we saw you touched the dead body. You could have asked them. Something like this. Or there were people with him who could say that, no, you didn't touch dead body.
So is this then the tafsili?
Yes, so he could get ilm tafsili or dhann tafsili, which is hujjah, but didn't inquire. He said, let me take a shower, it's easier. Or he felt embarrassed to tell people, I don't know whether I have to do ghusl.
Sorry, Sheikh, I don't understand capturing
Yes, it's-
dhann al-tafsili. In which sense dhann al-tafsili? How can it be?
To have a valid dhan that which one was actually the one. So he didn't take his time to find out the real one.
Okay, take another example than ghusl, for example.
Yes.
Another example than ghusl. Like the example. Another example than this book.
For example, wuzu is also possible. For example, if he knows that he has to make wuzu either for salat or nazr, he had made nazr. Said, I don't know for which one I have to. Something like this. فلا يجب عليه التفحص عن الواجب. He doesn't need to find out which one was the one. وإن تمكن من, even if he was able to find out. Why? Because what was important was to do غسل قربة إلى الله. And it is not part of qasd qurbat to say whether it is for janaba or for masamayyat. At least according to Ayatollah Subhani, it's not necessary to decide. You can say ghusl wajib, according to him. Okay.
Why is the ruling for example, if after that ghusl he wants to say prayer, wajib prayer, so does he have to do wuzu?
Yes.
Or has to do wuzu?
Yes. If he is not sure that it was janabat and your marja is the one that says ghusl masamayyat is not sufficient, then you have to do wuzu. Why there is no need to do tafahus, to do investigation? لأن الصحة في العبادات, validity of ibadat, رهن means depends. إتيان الفعل لأمره سبحانه, to bring that fi'l because of Allah's command. And he did exactly the same thing. He knew that there is a command from Allah here, and he did this ghusl for that. He didn't know exactly which command, but he knew that there is a command for ghusl. Yeah? Yeah. Another example, for example, in ordinary mawali, masters. Master tells you, bring me a cup of water, my son is thirsty or my daughter is thirsty. You don't remember which one. You bring the cup of water, then you don't need to inquire. Okay? As-suratu salisa. This is a bit more difficult. You know, every one becomes more difficult than the other. Tawassuli was easiest. Then when doesn't need takrar, repetition was easy. This one is a little bit more difficult. It's ta'abbudi and needs repetition. Why this is more difficult? Because you know that there is one amr, but now you are doing more than one. So definitely one of them doesn't have command. But again here we can say no problem. Why? Because you know that there is a command. And for the sake of that command you do all of them. السورة الثالثة كفاية الامتثال الإجمالي في التعبديات فيما إذا استلزم التكرار, when it needs repeating. كما إذا تردد أمر القبلة بين الجهتين. قبلة is now one of the two directions. Okay? Sometimes this happens, you know, I don't know whether this is north or south. You don't know. أو تردد الواجب بين الظهر والجمعة. It's the midday of Jum'ah, Friday. You don't know whether you have to do Zuhr or you have to do Jum'ah. One of them definitely. And you can find out either you are mujtahid, so you have to do ijtihad, or you are muqallid, you can ask your marja. But you say, it doesn't take that long, let me do both of them. So, تردد الواجب بين الظهر والجمعة مع إمكان التعيين بالاجتهاد أو التقليد. It was possible to define. فتركهما. What does it mean تركهما? أحسنتم. ترك الاجتهاد. Didn't do ijtihad if it was mujtahid, or didn't do taqlid. وامتثل الأمر الواقعي. He said, I want to obey the real amr by doing two salat. Or in the case of Zuhr and Jum'ah, doing one Zuhr, one Jum'ah. In the case of direction, two salat. فَالظَّاهِرُ كِفَايَتُهُ. It seems that this is also sufficient. لأن حقيقة الطاعات هو الانبعاث عن أمر المولى. What is the reality of obedience? Is that you are motivated, انبعاث means you are driven, you are motivated. انبعاث. Ba'as means to send. انبعاث means to be motivated to do something. You are driven by what? By command of Mawla, Amr al-Mawla. بحيث يكون الداعي والمحرك هو أمره. The motive is command of Mawla. والمفروض أن الداعي إلى الإتيان بكل واحد من الطرفين هو بعث المولى. And here, why he made these two? You cannot say there is no da'i except for one of them. Yes, there is command only for one of them, but that command creates two motives. Okay? You have motive to do both of them because you want to make sure that you have done that one. المفروض أن الداعي إلى الإتيان بكل واحد من الطرفين هو بعث المولى. And this ba'ath is مقطوع به, is certain. لولا بعثه, had it not been that Mawla has asked us and pushed us, he would not have done any of them. So for both of them he has reason. نعم لا يعلم تعلق الوجوب بالواحد المعين. Yes, here we don't know which one is the one that obligation has belonged to it. Is it Zohr or Jum'ah? We don't know. But الداعي للإتيان بكل واحد هو أمر المولى. But the motive is the command of Mawla. And the fact that the command of Mawla is either belonging to this or that is enough to do both of them. So, بذلك ظهر أن الاحتياط في عرض الدليل التفصيلي. So here we realize that ihtiyat is in the rank of ijtihad and taqlid. So either you solve the problem by ijtihad or by taqlid if you are not mujtahid, or you do ihtiyat.
You have to do everything for that.
Ihtiyat, you have to do all the possibilities. Sometimes there is one that you know that it's not the case.
Shaykhna, what
Yeah.
about the intention? Because we studied previously that there's three ways. So the
Okay.
is just with the intention that I know this is loved by Allah.
Yeah, and there is command for it. So you have niyyah of nearness to Allah or niyyah of imtithalul amr, but you don't know which one. فَقَدْ خَرَجْنَا بِالنَّتِيجَتَيْنِ. So we made two conclusions. Okay? So far we have made two conclusions. One, العلم الإجمالي كالعلم التفصيلي في منجزية التكليف ومعذريته. علم الإجمالي is like علم التفصيلي in making taklif munajjaz, and also if علم إجمالي is performed or observed, you are excused. Mu'azzir. Mu'azzir means gives you excuse.
Munajjaz is incumbent.
Munajjiz means makes the taklif effective. Actualizes. The second thing, كفاية الامتثال الإجمالي عن الامتثال التفصيلي. It is sufficient to obey without knowing which one was actually wajib. You repeat or you do one, but niyyah is not clear which one, but definitely the one that was wajib has been taken care of, or the one which was haram has been avoided. كفاية الامتثال الإجمالي عن الامتثال التفصيلي مطلقا. In all conditions, whether it is tabassuli, whether it is ta'abbudi, without tikrar, with tikrar, in all scenarios. Whether you can have ilm tafsili or you cannot have ilm tafsili, no problem. If you cannot have ilm tafsili, of course it's very obvious. But even if you can inquire and find out, there is no need. Okay. There is one point here in two paragraphs, but it's one point. إن العلم بالتكليف قد يراد به العلم الوجداني بالتكليف. When we say we have ilm ijmali, we know there is taklif. Sometimes we mean real ilm. You are sure, you know this. There is taklif. الذي لا يرضى المولى بتركه أبدا. Mawla never would be pleased with ignoring it. If you leave it, if you don't do it, Mawla is not happy. For example, كما إذا علم بكون أحد الشخصين محقون الدم دون الآخر. For example, he knows one of these two people is innocent. His life is to be protected. Mawla is not pleased with ignoring the necessity of saving innocent life. Sometimes it's not ilm wajdani. It's not that he is sure, but he has hujjah, amara. You know, for example, two people bear witness. This doesn't make you 100% sure. There is evidence. وأخرى يراد به العلم بقيام الحجة الشرعية على التكليف. You have knowledge that there is حجات. Okay? For example, كما إذا قامت الأمارة على حرمة العصير العنبي إذا غلا or غلية. When you have grape juice and it is boiled. Suppose you have amare. You are not sure, but there is khabar wahid. Khabar wahid is amare. Okay? That if someone boils grape juice, it becomes haram. Suppose. وتردد المغلی or تردد المغلی بین اناءین. Now he doesn't know which of these two containers is the one in which grape juice was boiling. So here you don't have ilm wajdani, but there is amara. He says our discussion here is when you know. But if you don't know yourself and there is amare, we discuss this issue in Usul Arba'ah, Usul Amaliyah, when we are talking about ihtiyat. We don't discuss it now. This is real ilm. But over there we have to discuss whether amare in such cases would be effective and bringing mas'uliyah or doesn't bring mas'uliyah. So the main thing is those two conclusions. Al-ilm al-ijmali munajjazun lit-taklif, and second, al-imtithal al-ijmali mujziyun. Al-imtithal al-ijmali is yakfi or mujzi, is sufficient. These two are the main points. Inshallah, next session we go to Hujjiyat al-Aql, about validity of Aql as a proof. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.